You wake up, rush to work, check your phone, answer emails, attend meetings, scroll through social media, and by the time night falls, you feel exhausted and empty. You tell yourself, I am busy, I am achieving, I am living. But pause for a moment. Are you really living, or are you just running in circles, a slave to your endless business? True life does not lie in constant movement. It lies in presence, awareness, and conscious choice. Most people live in a constant state of motion, believing that being busy is the same as living. They fill their days with tasks, meetings, messages and errands and can convince themselves that this is progress. Yet in this endless doing, they lose touch with what truly matters. Activity becomes a shield, a way to avoid facing themselves, and business becomes a chain that binds them to a life of superficial motion. The trap of business is that it looks productive while it quietly drains the spirit. Endless doing steals clarity and creativity. When the mind is constantly occupied, there is no room to reflect, to imagine, or to connect with the deeper currents of life. People mistake urgency for importance, filling every moment with distraction, and forget that meaningful living is measured not by the number of tasks completed, but by the depth of presence they bring to each moment. The more they chase activity, the further they drift from their own center. True freedom emerges when one learns to break free from unconscious habits. Much of business is automatic, habitual, and without intention. Observing your actions, questioning their purpose, and choosing what truly serves your life is the first step toward liberation. Saying no to unnecessary demands, letting go of what only fills space, and focusing on what nurtures growth allows the mind to settle and the spirit to breathe. Depth of engagement replaces the emptiness of endless movement. Stillness is not idleness, it is the foundation of clarity and inner strength. In moments of quiet, the mind rejuvenates, the body recovers, and the soul reconnects with itself. When you stop running, you begin to see. The answers to life's questions are not in constant motion, but in the silent awareness that allows insight and understanding to emerge. Choosing stillness is choosing presence, and choosing presence is choosing life. Business often feeds the desire for external validation, the compulsion to impress or keep up with others. But true freedom comes from inner validation, from acting with intention rather than reaction. Life is not a checklist to be completed, but a journey to be experienced. Every choice to pause, reflect, and act consciously is a rebellion against the chains of endless doing. By stepping off the treadmill of business, one meets life in its full richness and discovers that living deeply and consciously is far more powerful than simply being busy. Most people confuse urgency with importance. A ringing phone, a flashing notification, or a sudden request seems to demand immediate attention, and they respond without thought. In the rush to act, they forget to ask whether this truly matters in the larger scope of their life. Urgency can create a false sense of importance, convincing the mind that doing something immediately is the same as doing something valuable. The habit of reacting constantly to urgent matters keeps a person busy, but rarely moves them forward in meaningful ways. Being caught in the grip of urgency blinds people to what truly deserves their focus. They may spend hours addressing small problems while ignoring tasks that could bring lasting change or personal growth. The mind becomes fragmented, attention scattered, and energy drained. Life is not defined by the number of urgent matters handled, but by the depth and significance of the choices one makes. Without discernment, business becomes a mask for lack of direction, and people drift further from what genuinely matters. Learning to differentiate between urgency and importance is a practice of awareness. It requires pausing, observing, and questioning each task, does this action move me closer to my goals, my values, or my inner peace? Or is it simply a distraction from facing myself? This distinction is not always obvious because urgency often comes with emotion, pressure, and expectation. Still, those who cultivate the ability to see clearly can act with purpose instead of reaction, choosing their steps with intention rather than being carried by the tides of immediate demands. Prioritizing importance over urgency is not about avoiding responsibility, it is about mastering it. When people focus on what truly matters, they free their energy for actions that create real impact. They stop being slaves to the endless pull of trivial demands and start directing their life according to choice rather than circumstance. Every decision made with clarity strengthens the mind, sharpens focus, and deepens the experience of living consciously. The practice of distinguishing what is important from what is merely urgent transforms life. It teaches patience, discernment, and self-respect. Tasks no longer control the person controls the tasks. Energy is preserved, attention is focused, and the mind becomes a tool for meaningful action rather than a servant to endless distraction. In learning this difference, a person discovers freedom within the chaos and begins to live with intention rather than obligation. Endless business consumes more than time, it consumes the mind. When every moment is filled with tasks, meetings, and distractions, there is no space for reflection, imagination, or understanding. The mind becomes cluttered with noise and clarity is lost. People convince themselves that constant doing is productivity, yet in reality, it often leaves them exhausted and empty, unable to connect with the deeper currents of life. The relentless pace of activity steals creativity. The mind cannot generate new ideas or insights when it is perpetually occupied. Innovation requires space, stillness, and the ability to see things differently. When business dominates, the imagination withers and people fall into predictable patterns, repeating actions without thought. Life becomes mechanical and the sense of wonder that makes existence vibrant begins to fade. Constant doing also erodes inner peace. When the mind is always chasing the next task, the present moment is neglected. People live in a state of tension, rushing from one obligation to another, unable to rest fully in the now. Anxiety, frustration and fatigue accumulate quietly, and the sense of satisfaction that comes from mindful engagement is lost. Peace is not found in business, it emerges only when the mind is allowed to breathe. The compulsion to keep doing arises from habit, expectation, and fear. People act because they feel they must, not because they choose to. This mechanical motion traps the spirit, making life feel heavy and burdensome. By observing these patterns, questioning their necessity, and consciously stepping back, it is possible to reclaim control over one's energy and attention. Doing becomes a choice rather than a command, and life begins to flow with intention. Living fully requires resisting the pull of endless activity. Life is meant to be experienced, not merely survived through constant motion. By creating space for thought, reflection and mindful action, the mind regains clarity, creativity returns, and peace becomes tangible. In the absence of perpetual doing, existence transforms from a series of mechanical tasks into a conscious, vibrant, and deeply fulfilling journey. Most people fill their lives with constant motion, believing that doing more is the same as living fully. Tasks pile up, schedules overflow, and the mind is consumed by endless activity. In this state, awareness is lost. People move from one thing to another without noticing the quality of their own experience, and they confuse business with purpose. Acting without awareness reduces life to a series of reactions, leaving little space for clarity or true understanding. When the mind is aware, every action becomes deliberate and meaningful. Awareness allows a person to observe their own thoughts, emotions, and choices without being carried away by habit or impulse. It creates a space between stimulus and response, giving the individual control over their actions rather than letting circumstances dictate behavior. Without this conscious observation, life is lived on autopilot and decisions are made unconsciously, often resulting in wasted energy and unfulfilled potential. Awareness sharpens perception and enhances discernment. It enables one to recognize what truly deserves attention and what is merely distraction. By seeing clearly, people can prioritize their energy for actions that have genuine impact rather than being caught in a cycle of trivial tasks. The ability to distinguish between what serves the soul and what only occupies the mind is the foundation of intentional living. When people cultivate awareness, they begin to notice the subtle patterns of their behavior. Habits that once went unquestioned are seen, and choices that were automatic become deliberate. This conscious engagement transforms ordinary actions into meaningful steps toward growth and fulfillment. Each moment becomes an opportunity to act with clarity rather than to react blindly, and life gains depth, focus, and direction. True mastery over life comes from acting with intention, not from endless activity. Awareness allows the mind to settle, to observe, and to act purposefully. It is not about doing less for the sake of inactivity, but about doing with precision, depth, and attention. When awareness guides action, every choice aligns with purpose and life becomes a conscious journey rather than a hurried, unthinking race through endless tasks. Stillness is not merely the absence of activity, it is the foundation upon which clarity and inner strength are built. When the mind slows down and the body rests, awareness emerges. In these quiet moments, a person begins to notice thoughts, emotions, and sensations that are usually drowned out by constant motion. The noise of endless doing often masks the truth of one's own state, but stillness strips away distraction and reveals what has been ignored. The mind, when left unchecked, spins endlessly, creating stress, confusion, and restlessness. Stillness interrupts this cycle. It allows the mind to settle like water left undisturbed, revealing depth beneath the surface turbulence. In this calm, the person can observe patterns, understand impulses, and gain insight into choices that have long been automatic. The clarity that arises in stillness is not intellectual alone, it is intuitive, felt deeply, and transformative. The body also benefits profoundly from stillness. Continuous activity drains energy, weakens focus, and reduces the capacity for meaningful action. When the body is given rest and space, it rejuvenates naturally. Tension dissolves, energy is restored, and physical presence becomes aligned with mental and emotional awareness. This alignment strengthens resilience and allows action to flow from a place of balance rather than exhaustion. Stillness reconnects a person with themselves. In the rush of constant activity, the self becomes fragmented, distracted by external demands. When time is set aside to be quiet and present, awareness returns to the core of being. A person begins to feel life from a deeper perspective, noticing subtle joys, simple truths, and the vast potential that exists within. In these moments, one experiences connection with self that is impossible in business. The transformative power of stillness lies in its ability to restore control, focus, and presence. Life does not slow down for anyone, yet those who cultivate stillness are not carried away by every wave of distraction. They act with intention, respond with clarity, and face challenges from a grounded state. The mind, body, and spirit align, and the individual moves through life with purpose rather than being consumed by the endless demands of activity. Most business is unconscious. People act out of habit, responding automatically to the rhythm of life without pausing to consider whether their actions are meaningful. Tasks are repeated day after day not because they are necessary, but because they have always been done. In this pattern, activity becomes mechanical and the mind loses awareness of what is truly important. The habit of compulsive doing keeps people busy while preventing them from seeing the real direction of their life. Compulsive activity creates a false sense of accomplishment. The mind convinces itself that constant motion is productivity, and yet much of it serves only to fill time. People chase one task after another, responding to demands, notifications, and expectations without questioning whether these actions bring value or growth. The habit becomes self-perpetuating, and the individual is trapped in cycles of action that do not contribute to purpose or clarity. Observation is the first step to breaking this cycle. When a person begins to watch their own actions without judgment, they see patterns that were previously invisible. They notice how much energy is wasted on tasks that do not matter and how often they act unconsciously. Awareness shines a light on habits that were once hidden, creating the possibility of choice. Simply seeing the repetitive nature of compulsive doing is enough to weaken its hold. Questioning each action is the next step toward freedom. Not everything that demands attention deserves it. By asking whether an action serves growth, clarity, or well-being, a person begins to separate necessity from habit. This process requires courage because it challenges deeply ingrained patterns and the comfort of familiarity. Yet each conscious choice breaks another link in the chain of endless doing, gradually restoring control over one's life. Breaking the habit of compulsive doing transforms how a person experiences life. Energy is freed, focus is sharpened, and awareness becomes the guide for action. Life shifts from reaction to intention, from being driven by habit to being directed by choice. When actions are deliberate, the mind gains clarity, the spirit regains strength, and every moment becomes an opportunity to live consciously rather than merely to act. Saying yes to everything drains energy and scatters focus. People often agree to tasks, favors, or commitments out of habit, obligation, or fear of disappointing others. Each yes chips away at their time, their energy, and their ability to act with intention. By constantly prioritizing others or external expectations, they surrender control over their own lives and lose touch with what truly matters. The inability to say no creates a life dominated by other people's agendas. Time becomes fragmented, attention is divided, and meaningful action is delayed or neglected. Every unnecessary agreement adds weight, pulling the mind away from priorities that could lead to growth, clarity, and fulfillment. People remain busy yet unaccomplished, moving under the pressure of endless demands without realizing that their own purpose has been sidelined. Learning to say no is an act of self-respect. It is not rejection of others, but protection of one's own energy and focus. When a person chooses carefully where to invest time and attention, each commitment becomes deliberate and meaningful. Boundaries are established, inner space is preserved, and life begins to flow with clarity rather than distraction. The power of no lies in reclaiming control over one's own actions and priorities. Saying no also cultivates courage and awareness. It requires noticing what is unnecessary, resisting the pull of habit or fear, and acting with intention rather than automatic compliance. Each conscious refusal strengthens the mind, sharpens focus, and reinforces the value of one's own time and presence. People discover that their capacity for meaningful work, deep thought, and authentic connection expands when they stop overcommitting to everything around them. Mastering the ability to say no transforms life from scattered effort into deliberate action. Time is preserved, energy is concentrated, and attention is guided toward what truly matters. Decisions are made with clarity, boundaries are honored, and inner space is protected from intrusion. By refusing what does not serve purpose or growth, a person creates the freedom to live intentionally, act decisively. Most people spread themselves thin, trying to do everything at once and be present everywhere. They take on multiple tasks, projects and responsibilities, believing that quantity equals achievement. In this pursuit, attention is divided, energy is scattered, and none of the efforts reach their full potential. Superficial engagement becomes the norm, and life loses the richness that comes from focused involvement. Breadth without depth leaves the mind restless and the heart unsatisfied. When a person touches many things lightly, they rarely experience mastery, understanding or fulfillment. The more tasks are attempted at once, the more scattered the effort becomes and the less meaningful each accomplishment feels. Exhaustion grows while the sense of real progress and achievement diminishes. Depth requires concentration, patience and presence. By committing fully to a few meaningful activities, a person can explore them thoroughly, understand their nuances and contribute in a way that matters. Focus allows the mind to enter a state of flow where effort feels effortless and results become significant. Deep engagement transforms ordinary tasks into experiences of learning, growth and satisfaction. Prioritizing depth also strengthens judgment and decision-making. When energy is focused on fewer tasks, the person can invest thought, reflection and care into each choice. Mistakes are reduced, understanding is increased and the quality of work improves. Superficial busyness is replaced by deliberate action and the mind gains clarity that cannot be achieved through scattered effort. Life gains purpose when depth is chosen over breadth. The mind, body and spirit align as attention is concentrated on what truly matters. Each effort becomes meaningful, each accomplishment resonates and satisfaction replaces exhaustion. By engaging fully rather than partially, a person discovers that living deeply rather than doing endlessly is the path to real mastery, presence and fulfillment. And engage fully with the tasks and relationships that deserve their focus. Most people spread themselves thin, trying to do everything at once and be present everywhere. They take on multiple tasks, projects and responsibilities, believing that quantity equals achievement. In this pursuit, attention is divided, energy is scattered, and none of the efforts reach their full potential. Superficial engagement becomes the norm, and life loses the richness that comes from focused involvement. Breadth without depth leaves the mind restless and the heart unsatisfied. When a person touches many things lightly, they rarely experience mastery, understanding or fulfillment. The more tasks are attempted at once, the more scattered the effort becomes and the less meaningful each accomplishment feels. Exhaustion grows while the sense of real progress and achievement diminishes. Depth requires concentration, patience and presence. By committing fully to a few meaningful activities, a person can explore them thoroughly, understand their nuances and contribute in a way that matters. Focus allows the mind to enter a state of flow where effort feels effortless and results become significant. Deep engagement transforms ordinary tasks into experiences of learning, growth and satisfaction. Prioritizing depth also strengthens judgment and decision-making. When energy is focused on fewer tasks, the person can invest thought, reflection and care into each choice. Mistakes are reduced, understanding is increased and the quality of work improves. Superficial business is replaced by deliberate action and the mind gains clarity that cannot be achieved through scattered effort. Life gains purpose when depth is chosen over breadth. The mind, body and spirit align as attention is concentrated on what truly matters. Each effort becomes meaningful, each accomplishment resonates, and satisfaction replaces exhaustion. By engaging fully rather than partially, a person discovers that living deeply rather than doing endlessly is the path to real mastery, presence, and fulfillment. Many people live their lives seeking approval from others, measuring their worth by the opinions and recognition of those around them. Every action is filtered through the lens of judgment, and decisions are made to impress rather than to serve purpose. This constant need for external validation traps the mind in a cycle of performance, keeping the person busy with appearances while their inner self remains neglected. Chasing the approval of others creates a life of compulsion and compromise. People act according to expectations, follow trends, and mold themselves to fit perceived standards. In doing so, they suppress their true desires, intuition, and individuality. Energy is spent maintaining a facade, and the natural flow of creativity and authenticity is blocked. Business becomes a mask, hiding the emptiness that comes from ignoring one's own inner guidance. Inner validation is the antidote to this cycle. When a person learns to rely on their own judgment, to trust their own experience, and to value their own presence, they free themselves from the constant need to perform. Decisions become intentional, actions become meaningful, and energy is no longer wasted on pleasing everyone else. The mind gains clarity, the spirit gains freedom, and life begins to unfold according to its own rhythm rather than the expectations of others. Stop glorifying business. Stop allowing your life to be dictated by endless lists, urgent notifications, and meaningless tasks. True freedom is not in doing more, it is in being more aware, more conscious, and more alive in each moment. When you step off the treadmill of endless activity, you finally meet yourself, and life unfolds not as a series of tasks, but as a journey of depth, clarity, and true fulfillment.